Chill out. It's just a potentially fatal, relatively contagious, deadly virus. Matthias, I'm surprised you made it here. I just thought you'd be up late last night.
I was.
And then still home celebrating.
No, I wish.
Were you home praying all day yesterday? Was that how they pulled it out? It was because you stayed home sick so you could pray all day?
I mean,
Is that...
I wasn't praying all day. I slept until did a rain dance.
Did a rain dance? Yes. Yeah. Rain dance in the morning, is that what? Thanks a lot.
I was, yeah.
Well, he wanted to pull the rain north so that the Royals would be able to get their game in and
It started raining
win at the last minute.
Pre-game started at like 8.
Okay. So this is exactly where we quit yesterday, yes? Thank you, Anna. I think that it's going to be time for a new seating chart in here tomorrow. So when you come in tomorrow, sit somewhere different. You may not sit immediately next to anyone you are currently sitting next to.
I call it Friday.
That's great, and many of you have not been a problem. Blame those that you know are a problem.
Way to go, people in the back.
You should just move them. That's not fair. I like my spot.
But if I move them, guess what?
Somebody else has got
I have to move somebody else, so it's better to make everybody move.
If you move half the class, the other class can't.
But then it would like break.
That's physics. That's displacement.
area under the curve.
Don't say that.
Okay. So from $0 to $9, there is no supply, thus we have zero surplus. Right? From 10 to 19, the suppliers are willing to sell 1. So forth, yes? Okay. At each quantity, the height of the supply curve is the cost of the marginal seller. On the other side, the height of the supply or the height of the demand curve was the cost or the price of the marginal buyer. So it's the same thing but different. Same thing, different words, different slope, but same thing. If the market price was any lower than $20, the guy who took us from 1 to 2, Janet, at $19, she's out. Okay? It's the same way it was with the marginal buyers. Did anybody go home and look at Three's Company? No? Okay. You're missing out. It's a pretty good 70s sitcom. This one dude lives with 2 girls in an apartment, but in order to get the landlord to rent to them, because he didn't like the idea, because it's 1970s, early 80s, in order to get him to rent to one guy and 2 pretty young girls, he had to convince the landlord that he was gay. And so then when he brings dates home and stuff, all sorts of hilarity ensues. Cross-dressing and faked homosexuality were big themes in the 70s and 80s. Tom Hanks, his first television show was called Bosom Buddies. And he and another guy cross-dressed as girls to live in an all-girls apartment house. Yeah, it was actually a pretty funny show. All right, was that enough chatter to let you get this down? Okay. Connor's moving his pencil so much it's like he's doing courtroom sketches back there. Oh my gosh! Definition, producer surplus equals price minus cost. But Hoke, it's the same equation as consumer surplus. How do I know what to do?
Wow, it really sense the sarcasm.
There wasn't any, that's the opposite.
That was a very good read, KK. There actually wasn't any sarcasm. Now, the actual definition is relatively different because this is what you get paid minus your cost, whereas consumer surplus is what you actually pay minus, or what you were willing to pay minus what you actually pay. Same concept, though. Okay, so if the price is $25, what is our producer surplus? Jack's producer surplus is $15. Janet's is $5. And will Chrissy have a producer surplus? No. So the total producer surplus is $20. So here we're operating above the curve, where with consumer surplus we were operating below the curve. Say what? It's just the space between the y-axis and the curve, yes. So total producer surplus equals all of the individual surpluses added up. From 0 to Q.
How quick?
How quick?
Real quick.
So who do we play Friday?
The Lincoln School. Rhode Island.
Oh, Lincoln School?
Lincoln South.
Wow. Don't you start.
You know we're undefeated against Lincoln School so far?
We are undefeated against Lincoln School so far. That is a fantastic way to look at the season, yes.
Yeah, that one.
No, I said Friday.
It's Southwest.
Yeah.
No, it's Little Cameron Gulf.
Too bad it's not
Who's
Southeast
gonna
we're
win the
playing.
homecoming game?
Yeah, if you don't win the homecoming game, you like shouldn't be able to go to homecoming.
Yeah, you never go anyway.
Tyler, you're basically getting kicked out.
Okay. So, shoes. Nikki stopped and asked me yesterday when we did this with shoes on the consumer side, when we're talking about thousands, how come when we did the math we left the zeros off? We just left the zeros off for sanity's sake. It wasn't that they went away. We should have added the zeros back into all of our answers, but life is easier if you don't just carry around extra zeros. How many of you have a few zeros in your pocket? Yeah. See? The majority of you then understand the ease of life without extra zeros in your pocket. As a teacher, I don't ever have any extra zeros, so. All right, so price is $40. At a quantity of 15,000, the marginal seller's cost is $30. What is the consumer surplus? Or I said consumer surplus, didn't I? I apologize. Producer surplus. $10 at 25. Okay. Everybody got that? Does it confuse you when the triangle's upside down? BW. What are you? Below or between? Between price and the S curve. Below. Below price and the supply curve. Is everybody okay with the triangle being upside down? It still works for you geometry-wise? The reflective properties of a triangle? Same math, yes. So half of 25 times 25 gives us a producer surplus of 312.50, and then if we put our zeros back in, does that make life easier? Yeah. 31,250 is correct. No. Yes. No. We have 3 zeros.
Also, we have to add a zero.
So it'd be 312,000.
Yes. Yes. Easier to leave the zeros off. If you had a problem like this that was in thousands, you would have to give the answer with the zeros back in. Okay, if price falls to 30, will we have more producer surplus or less? Common sense, right? So when you do the math, you should be looking for an answer that is smaller, okay? So your gap here is from 15 to 30. Darn it, I hate it when I have it plugged in, because that happens. Okay, from 15 to 30. So in the green, this is just like before, in the green is the amount that we lose because of the change in price. In the blue is the amount we lose because the sellers are just gonzo. They're out of the market. Does that make more sense today after you've had a chance to process it? Whereas it confused you yesterday, but you're good today? All right. How many of you went home and actually reviewed it a little? Good. All right. That is progress. Guys, when you get to college and you have something that's tough in class, and you only have that class once a week, or twice a week, or 3 times a week, if you let it sit a whole 2 days before you go back to class, or if it's a Tuesday, Thursday class and you let it sit from Thursday to Tuesday without even thinking about it, and then you go back and the professor adds even more difficult stuff, you're going to be hosed. You've got to study it after the class. You can't wait. All right, practice time. Yay. All right. The marginal seller's cost at quantity 10 is $20, and the producer surplus at a price of $20 is what? Producer surplus at a price of 20. So how do we do it? We have the height of 20, but we'd have to do half of that, so we have 10 times. And so our producer surplus at $10 or at $20 is 100. Good. Math we can do in our heads.
Why do you only take half of the...
Because that's how you find the area of a triangle. Half the base times height.
You said that so degrading.
I'm sorry.
No.
That's how you find the area of a triangle. It's half base times height.
I didn't take it as...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So suppose, we talked too much about Hong Kong today. Suppose price goes up to $30. Find the increase in producer surplus due to selling 5 more units. So we now have to find the increase in producer surplus in this little triangle right here. So the height of this triangle is 10, and so half 5 times the increase in quantity is, so the increase in producer surplus due to selling 5 more units is 25. And then what about the higher price, which comes in this rectangle? The area of this rectangle is 10 times it's 100. So our total increase in producer surplus is 125. You'd already forgotten the area of the triangle, hadn't you? Dollars. I don't want to talk about doll hairs. All right. So we were right on all of that. all of that. So the price goes up to 30. Our little triangle was 25. Yay. And our rectangle was 100, so our total increase in producer surplus was 125. Yay! Now guess what? Yes, which is called total surplus when you do them together. Ethan, you have good prescience, the ability to tell the future. Okay. This is just rehash, right? Consumer surplus is the value to buyers minus what the buyers pay. It is the amount the buyers gain from being in the market. What? Is there a shortage half?
Yeah, we're doing surplus here.
Oh, yes. There is a shortage half.
Is there homework over the weekend?
Is there homework over the weekend? Yeah, chapter 8.
That's fine.
Always
As long as I don't have to study for a class.
That's why I'm trying hard to cram this in so you don't have homework over homecoming.
We have another Friday off.
Honestly, if a teacher assigns
Conferences.
homework over the weekend, they're probably really I forgot.
Okay. So total surplus is your total gains from trade. The equation is the value to buyers minus the cost to sellers. That's how you get total surplus. Buyer value minus seller cost is total surplus. Buyer value minus seller cost is total surplus. I am fascinated, and this is just a personal observation, I'm fascinated by those of you who are able to do this and never write anything down. I have like 6 pages of notes over this concept. I worked last night on this.
Did you get all your other homework done?
No.
Okay, well.
Econ's actually the hardest thing I do. It's harder than my grad classes and way more time consuming. So, yeah. My brain doesn't work like this. I have to work hard at this. Very hard. Okay. In a market economy, the allocation of resources is decentralized. Think about just that part of the sentence. The allocation of resources is decentralized. What does that mean? Yeah, there's no one, well, yes, that's what decentralized means, but there's no one entity saying, okay, this factory gets this many tons of timber and this many gallons of water and this much electricity, and from that they have to produce X. Okay? In a command economy, think Soviet Union, the government would be saying, this is what you get. Figure out how to make what we set as your quota from it. Okay, so there's no control there. So the allocation of resources instead is determined by the interactions, the market exchanges of buyers and sellers. The people in our circular flow, right? This is going on in the factor market, right? The businesses are going to buy their resources. The households are going to sell their resources. Yes? Okay. This is the complex economic way of saying it, but you have to get comfortable with reading these words and understanding them, because these are the words you're going to see on the AP test. Many of you had trouble understanding some of the words on the unit test questions, right? If you're honest with yourself, that's what the vocabulary is going to be like. Right. Is the market's allocation of resources desirable? Is the market putting the resources where we really want them? Or if the resources were allocated differently, would society as a whole be better off? It's a question you have to at least consider. So to answer that question, you use total surplus. guess what? Is it good to have a big surplus? You want it to be Goldilocks style, right? You want it to be just right. If you have too much surplus, you're operating in the realm of inefficiency. The consumers are too well off and the producers are being hurt, or the producers are too well off and the consumers are being hurt. Please do remember, total surplus is used to measure society's well-being. That's total surplus measures society's well-being.
So like, would we have a better total surplus than like Africa?
You could say that the United States has a better total surplus than Mexico, than Nigeria, than Rwanda, than Iraq, than Pakistan.
So like each of those countries, like they have like a larger surplus.
Right, their total surplus is off. Yes, Dashby.
So if total surplus measures society's well-being, is there like a certain numerical value or something that would be at this?
You would like total surplus to be 0. Policymakers care about equality. But we are economists here, and so we care about efficiency. And there is another disconnect, guys, between government and economics, between politics and economics, because policymakers and why do policymakers care about anything they care about? Because voters care, right? Policymakers care about what voters care about. Voters care about equality. Voters don't think about efficiency. So policymakers care about equality. And we know from having studied economics that efficiency doesn't always create equality, and that attempting to create equality almost always creates inefficiency, and that is not economically desirable. And so that's why we have our political system, to work out who wins. All right. Total surplus equals the value to buyers minus the cost to sellers. You've already had this. So an allocation of resources is efficient if it maximizes total surplus. So efficiency, when we're looking at total surplus, efficiency is when the goods end up with the people who value them most highly. That makes sense, right? That's what we talked about with allocation in the last unit, right? Standing in line, seller bias. The goods should be produced by the producers with the lowest cost, right? You want the producers to have the lowest cost because then they can offer a reasonable price and leave the buyers with some surplus while still having some surplus themselves. Yay. I'm going to blow your mind. We're efficient if you change the quantity of the good but don't change the total surplus. Remember, combining both. We know we changed the surplus when we were looking at just supply or just demand, but when you have them both, if you can change the quantity but not affect the surplus, then you're efficient.
How do you change the surplus?
That's what we did when we raised the price or lowered the price. So I'm going to show you.
But the total surplus though. How do you change the total surplus?
I'm going to show you. I'm just waiting for people to finish writing. Nothing more aggravating. Okay, equilibrium, price of 30, quantity 15,000. Consumer surplus, demand curve, up from the price, right? Don't think about elasticity yet. Don't make me get the tape out. All right, now, where is producer surplus? You are correct. Okay. So in the red triangle is our total surplus. So think, left of equilibrium between the curves is total surplus. Left of equilibrium between the curves is total surplus. Is this market equilibrium efficient? Well, I have to prove it to you graphically and mathematically. Don't do the tax. No.
Is it kind of like if we're like
Let's go through it and wait to draw the parallels, because if people don't get it, then to draw the parallels will blow their minds too fast. Do people do it for fun?
No, they do it for a lot of
They do it for a living. I would assume, I would hope that most people choose their career based on something they actually enjoy doing.
there's an NFL quarterback that has it, or like an economist.
Andrew Luck has a degree in
Andrew Luck, yeah.
Architecture, isn't it?
He has a degree in architecture
All right.
at Stanford.
I don't know. The quarterback has it.
I know. You could just retire right now.
Isn't his like IQ like a little bit better than that or something like that?
All right, let's break this down. Let's break this down. Looking at, hey, consumer surplus. Every buyer from 0 to 15,000 in quantity will buy because they value this good at least $30, right? Or I'm sorry, yes. So these guys are buying. This is surplus above that price, right? All of these guys down here to the right are not buying. They don't value it at $30, right? And they're not interested. So the ones who value it the most highly are the ones who get it. Is that efficient? Yes. That meets our test of efficiency. The buyers who value it most highly get it. Yes. Based on price. And the price you are willing to pay is what tells us how much a consumer values a good. Think back to the very beginning of yesterday. That was kind of our definition, right? What you were willing to pay, and not 1 penny more, is your value for the good. Are we good? No pun intended. So now to the surplus side. Can I explain it? Okay. The consumers who are willing to pay $30 get the good. That's these guys here along this curve. From $30 on up, these guys don't value it. They don't get it. They don't want it. So who produces it? Every seller whose cost is under 30 or equal to 30 will produce it. These guys are making the good. Here, left of equilibrium. They will produce it. Everybody whose cost is more than $30 won't make the good. It's not worth it to them. This should feel a little bit like a duh moment, right? If I can't sell it for what it costs me to make it, why spend the time making it? Why indeed? That's the recipe for going out of business. So the sellers with the lowest cost end up producing the good. Is that efficient? It is efficient. Right now, just thinking, can you imagine how we could introduce some inefficiency into this situation? How about a price control?
No.
A price control would instantly introduce some inefficiency, wouldn't it? Because if we put a price floor in up here above equilibrium, guess what happens? All of these people end up producing, and they're not the lowest cost producers. Right? Put in a price ceiling, and some of these folks end up buying, and they didn't value it most highly. Oh. More junk. All right. So, the question, does equilibrium maximize total surplus? At a quantity of 20, the cost of producing is 35. At a quantity of 20, the willingness to buy is 20 or thereabouts. Are you following this? How many of you wish you'd brought colored pencils to class? It's a good thing this is recorded for you. Okay? All right. So, we have a lot of extra surplus, don't we? We have a lot of total surplus. Yes?
So it's almost like surplus.
How do we reduce total surplus? Not a change in price. Where did we start? We started at the quantity. So if we change the quantity, we will reduce our total surplus.
One of the rules is a change in quantity does not change surplus.
A change in quantity doesn't change price. When you're just talking about supply or demand, it changes quantity demanded. And that's all we've actually done. We changed the quantity, and it changed the price. That's total surplus. At a quantity of 20, that gap is total surplus.
So the gap to the right, that's
Yep.
total surplus.
Yep, that's all total surplus. All of this funkiness here is total surplus.
Yeah, will you write that in?
And that, just wait. Just wait. Just wait.
So shapes, secondary, producer surplus.
Thanks for making a rhombus.
Just wait. Just wait, okay? At any quantity over 15, where equilibrium is, we're going to have a whole lot of surplus. Just wait. All I'm trying to prove to you is that equilibrium maximizes surplus.
Okay.
Equilibrium, good. Okay. If we're below equilibrium, we can increase total surplus by getting to equilibrium quantity. Okay? Yes? Max?
Well, I said, if I said, like, if you said the fact that raising or lowering the quantity, but it would not increase the total surplus. That's sufficient.
Wasn't that just for efficiency? Like
Yeah,
essentially?
that's for efficiency.
Oh, okay.
When you say we increase efficiency, I'm moving towards equilibrium quantity. Is that what that little blue arrow is?
Yes.
So it's not just equilibrium everything, the equilibrium. It's equilibrium quantity, equilibrium everything else.
Yes, it is.
Just keep going.
Ethan?
Okay, when you say getting to equilibrium will maximize total surplus, when you say maximize, is that just like trying to get it to zero? That
Yeah, I thought
It's not that you.
surplus.
That's
I
what
don't like this panel.
anything you just said.
Same. Surplus is like surplus.
Yeah.
Max efficient, but maximum.
Read.
Should probably write this down.
Are you reading?
Yeah, I read it.
Oh, now we have pens.
I read those words.
still is.
They don't make sense.
Well, like, I got that part.
Yeah, I get it, but like,
What he's saying is like, is it
If you are not here at equilibrium, everything here is surplus. Anything to the left of equilibrium cuts down your surplus. Anything to the right of equilibrium is extra stuff that you don't need. It's outside the surplus, and it ends up reducing the surplus because it's waste.
I thought the goal was to get surplus at zero. Like, that was what you're measuring.
Ideally, you want producer surplus to equal consumer surplus, but you can't get surplus to zero. You'd have to have zero.
Okay.
Did I say that? Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
So your goal is to get it as close to the equilibrium as
Yes.
possible.
Yes.
your goal is to get
So if you have like
consumer
10 and 8,
surplus
you
and
wanna get
producer
to know.
surplus that equal.
That would be best for the market, yes.
How is that possible? The curves already.
Unit elasticity.
That's the only way it's
Yeah.
possible.
Yes.
Are you saying if like consumer surplus is 10 and whatever
Producer surplus is 15.
yeah, you want to get to like what the same like
Yes.
okay.
Yes. That's how you achieve equality. And if producer surplus equals consumer surplus, guys, if producer surplus equals consumer surplus, you have achieved both equality and efficiency. And you can only do that if both demand and supply are unit elastic. Oh, yes. You need to do more end of chapter problems tonight because we will finish the lecture tomorrow and go over as many of them as we can.
So when you're at, like, so is it when your surplus is efficient? Like when it's at the equilibrium, it's not